Your Worship, it is ready to go when you're ready at 7.
Thank you. I believe, there's the last member of council. We'll give it a couple of minutes to start at 7 o'clock. Thank you. All right, it's almost 7 o'clock. If I could get council to come on screen. There. I'll try to peg it so we call it to order at exactly 7 o'clock. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Welcome to this 60th session of the Council of Loyalist Township on this Monday, January the 10th, 2022. We welcome and we call the meeting to order at 7 o'clock on the dot. And remind everyone that this is a virtual meeting, but the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, Council's Rules of Procedure, Code of Conduct, and other pertinent legislation apply to these proceedings as if this were an in-person meeting. If any member's connection to the meeting is interrupted, I will ask council to pause for a few moments until the member can reconnect. And if the member has not reconnected within 5 minutes, assuming we still have quorum, the meeting will resume. As I said, we called the meeting to order. There was no closed session this evening. So at this time, I will turn it to the clerk for the playing of the national anthem and ask members of council to turn down their screens. And this time, we acknowledge that we are being hosted on the ancestral lands of the Haudenosaunee, Mississauga, and Omami-Wenini peoples. We acknowledge and welcome the presence of all Indigenous peoples, including the Métis, Inuit, and other First Nations from across this vast land who also makes this place home. The lands we are on today are recognized in the Tuwar Wampum, Dish with One Spoon Treaty, Treaty 27, and the Crawford Purchase. Welcome, everyone. At this time, we move to our open forum. The first 15 minutes of any regular council meeting is set aside for the open forum. Any individual may address council to voice an opinion on subject of municipal concern, excluding matters subject to a public meeting, i.e. under the Planning Act. The member can only speak once and for no more than 3 minutes. Notice is hereby provided that under the authority of the Municipal Act and in accordance with Ontario's Municipal Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, all information provided for or at a public meeting or consultation or other public processes are considered part of the public record. Loyalist Township continues to be in a declared state of emergency with meetings being held virtually. Therefore, anyone wishing to speak at a council meeting can register in advance with the clerk's division at clerk@loyalist.ca or use the raised hand option when called upon by the chair. At this time, if there are any members of the audience who wish to speak in the open forum, I would invite you to use the raised hand function if you're able to indicate your interest in speaking. And I'll turn to the clerk. Madam Clerk, are you seeing anyone or aware of anyone that wishes to present at open forum?
I don't see anyone with the raised hand. We do have a delegation later on in the agenda, but I don't see any raised hands at this time.
Okay, thank you. I'll give it one last call for anyone who wishes to address the open forum. I'm seeing none. We'll move forward. Thank you. At this time, notice is provided under the authority of the Municipal Act and in accordance with MPIPA that all information provided for or at a public consultation meeting or other public process are considered part of the public record. So tonight we are giving notice of a public meeting regarding the 2022 operating budget. And in accordance with Township Notice Bylaw 2007-119, notice is hereby given that the Council of the Corporation of Loyalist Township intends to adopt the 2022 operating budget at the regular council meeting to be held on February the 14th, 2022. And the documents are provided attached to the agenda for any review of any member of the public wishing to make comment, and it will be a public meeting that evening. Moving forward, confirmation of agenda. We have the agenda before us. Are there any noted changes to the agenda for this evening? I'm seeing none. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda? Councillor Gordon, so moved. Deputy seconds. Thank you. And any comment? I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. This time I'll ask for the declaration of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Is there any member of council wishing to make such a declaration this evening? I'm seeing none. We'll move forward. Thank you. We now move to delegations and presentations, and I understand Mr. Terrance Linkson wishes to make a presentation. Madam Clerk, are we able to bring Mr. Linkson in?
I know he was phoning in, and I don't see anyone on through telephone, Your Worship.
Council, since Mr. Linkson is not here and available, I would ask your permission to skip over this. If he's able to join us a little bit later, then we will come back to this item on the agenda as long as I don't have any concern with that from council. I'm seeing no concern, and we'll move forward then. Thank you. We'll go to item number 10, and Madam Clerk, if you see Mr. Linkson join in, please flag me so that we can bring that back.
I will keep monitoring that, Your Worship.
Thank you. We'll move to item number 10, the adoption of the minutes and the business arising. 10.1 is the confirmation of the minutes from the 59th session of council on December the 13th. We have the minutes before us. Are there any noted errors or omissions? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve those minutes? Deputy, so moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Parks, thank you. And any comments on the minutes? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. We move to 10.2, the confirmation of the minutes of the special council meeting held January the 4th. As presented, are there any noted errors or omissions? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve those minutes? Councillor Townend, so moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Buderick, thank you. Any comments for anyone? I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. We move to the confirmation of the minutes and the recommendations from the December 9th, 2021 Committee of the Whole. And we have a couple of resolutions there. And when we have the minutes before us. Council, do we have any errors or omissions noted in the minutes? Seeing none, and I see the clerk.
Yep, through Your Worship, we just had to change the title on the on those minutes so that they've been updated from administration to Committee of the Whole.
Thank you. Any others? I'll look for a motion to approve as minorly amended. Can I get a motion? Deputy, so moved. Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Gordon, thank you. Okay. Any comment? I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. 10.4, confirmation of the minutes and recommendations from the January 4th, 2022 Committee of the Whole meeting. Again, we have the minutes before us with the recommendations. Any errors or omissions noted? Then I'll ask for a motion to, oh, Deputy, go ahead.
Just checking to see if this will also be changed from administration to Committee of the Whole.
Yes, through Your Worship, yes, and all the it's just in the template, so we'll make sure we amend that for the next meetings, but this one will as well.
Thank you. Okay. Any other errors or omissions noted? And can I get a motion? Councillor Townend, so moved. Seconded by Councillor Buderick. Thank you. Any comment? I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. We move to item 12 from the Office of the Chief Administrator. Mr. Silver is here. A report on security for development agreements. Mr. Silver, do you have anything to add or to highlight within this report?
Nothing further, Your Worship. This report is from the January 4th Committee of the Whole. It was a request by the committee that further information and clarification be presented. So that's the purpose of the report. And there are two options for a recommendation for council to consider.
Thank you. Council, do we have any questions with regard to this report? I appreciate the further information being brought forward, and we do have a recommendation with an or. I'll look to council to make a motion, assuming picking one or the other. Members, Deputy, go ahead.
Move to receive the report and adopt recommendation number 1.
Recommendation number 1. And okay, council, do I have a seconder? Councillor Gordon, thank you. Deputy, would you like to make comment?
Just that thanks to staff for the report. It filled in the blanks that I was looking for.
Thank you. Seconder, did you have comment? Anyone else have comment? I'm seeing none. I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Silver. We move to the Business Department. This is Services Department and the Treasurer. And there's Mr. Dickey. Welcome, sir. We have up first, we have 13.1, the interim tax levy bylaw. The report is before us. Mr. Dickey, do you have anything to add or to highlight within this report?
Nothing to highlight through you, Mr. Mayor. Just the required annual, we have an annual requirement to pass a bylaw for us to be able to send interim tax bills out to the township residents to be able to start collecting some cash flow in the first part of the year. So this is a typical annual requirement to pass this bylaw. I'll take any questions if there are any.
Thank you. Council, do we have any questions with regard to the interim tax levy bylaw? I'm seeing none. I'll look for a mover for it, please. Councillor Buderick, so moved. Councillor Townend seconding. Mover and seconder have any comment? No? Anyone else have comment? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? And motion is carried. Right, then we move to 13.2, the 2022 temporary borrowing bylaw. Okay, and again, we have the report from the treasurer. And Mr. Dickey, anything to highlight?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, one comment. We an astute reviewer of this document after it was posted noted that on the first page of the draft borrowing bylaw, page 4 of the report, we did forget to update the year to 2022 on that first paragraph. So if it's okay, when we go to finalize the bylaw for signing, we'll make that fix that typo.
Good catch. Thank you. Anything else? Any member of council have any questions with regard to this? No? Then I will look for a motion, presumably to approve with the amendment, a minor amendment. Deputy and Councillor Parks. Thank you. Any comments from the mover or seconder? Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Continuing moving forward, we are up to item 16, Economic Growth and Community Development Services Department. And there's our director, Ms. Merritt. We have a report regarding the Heritage Committee members. Ms. Merritt, do you have anything to highlight or to add to this report at this time?
Through you, Your Worship, I just wanted to clarify that staff is planning on advertising for additional members for the Heritage Committee very shortly, and then we will be looking at additional candidates to fill the vacancies, just in case it wasn't clear in the report.
Thank you. Council, do we have any questions? Councillor Parks, go ahead.
Sorry, I may have missed this. I'm just a little confused. Mr. Tasker actually owns property in the village of Bath, so would he not still be considered a resident of Bath, or do you actually have to have a primary residence here in the village? I'm just not sure why this nomination is required if he owns property in the village.
The policy speaks to being residents of the township, and you're absolutely correct, Councillor Parks. He owns a property, but it's not his primary residence.
Thank you. I just wanted clarification on that.
Thank you. Anything else from any member of council? And we have a recommendation with the report to allow the one-time exemption regarding the residents of the township and to appoint Mr. Ron Tasker. Councillor Parks, go ahead.
So moved. So moved.
So moved. And I see Councillor Buderick. Thank you. Okay. Any comments from anyone? Seeing none, I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And we move forward. Well, we're up to notices of motion or direct motion. Is there anything from council? Councillor Townend, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. It may be time sensitive, but I'll get you to rule on that. Whereas our Sovereign Lady Elizabeth will recall with fondness her visit to Ernestown in 1984 in the 32nd year of her reign. And whereas the namesake of this municipality bears witness to the historic and loyal allegiance to the Crown. And whereas on the 6th of February 2022 marks 70 years since Queen Elizabeth II acceded to the throne, be it resolved that Loyalist Township direct the mayor to write a personal letter expressing congratulations on behalf of the citizens of Loyalist Township to Her Majesty, marking this her Platinum Jubilee.
And given that the length of time it takes to mail something and the timing involved, I will accept that as a direct motion. Okay. Actually, Madam Clerk, do I need I need approval of council to do so, don't I?
Yeah.
Okay. Council, I will ask for a mover to accept this as a direct motion. Can I have a mover for that? Deputy, so moved. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Parks, thank you. This is just to accept it as a direct motion. Okay. Council, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. We have the majority, Madam Clerk. That is carried. Then we can accept this as a direct motion. Councillor Townend, you've made the motion. Okay. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Do I have a seconder for the motion? Deputy, go ahead. You're seconding?
So moved, yes, seconded.
Thank you. And Councillor Townend, as mover, would you like to speak to it?
I think the motion speaks for itself, Your Worship. I just think it would be a nice thing for the township to do, especially considering, as I said, as I mentioned in the motion, the Queen, of course, has visited Loyalist Township to open the gates to the Parkway. And I think that regardless of where anyone stands on the politics of monarchy, and I'm sure lots of people know where I stand, regardless, 70 years on the job is certainly something to be commended for the Queen's public service.
Absolutely. Thank you. Seconder, do you have comment?
Just that, as was already said, all politics aside, it's a pretty amazing milestone to be made. And interestingly enough, I was at that when she visited that time I was there, and there were lots of hills to stand on. There was only about 2 houses around there. But it was a memorable occasion.
The geography has changed, but the monarchy hasn't. Absolutely. Okay. Do I have any other comments from other members of council? I'm seeing no comment. Okay. I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Okay. Oh, Councillor Townend, you had a bit of an internet delay. I'm assuming you were voting in favor. Yes, thank you. Right. Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Are there any other notices of motion or direct motion? I see none. Right. We'll move forward to the consent agenda. Right. For the purposes of convenience and for expediting meetings, matters of business that are routine or repetitive in nature are included in the consent agenda, and all such matters of business contained in the consent agenda are voted on collectively. Any particular matter of business may be singled out from the consent agenda for debate or for separate vote upon the request of any member of council. In the case of a separate vote, the excluded matter of business is severed from the consent agenda. Each and every matter of business contained in the consent agenda is recorded separately in the minutes of the meeting. Is there anything that any member of council wishes to extract from the consent agenda at this time? Deputy, go ahead.
Item 23-1 from the city of Sarnia and 24-1 from Amel.
23-1 and 24-1. Thank
Yes.
you. Anything else anyone wishes to extract? I'm seeing none. Then I'll ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda without those two items extracted. Councillor Buderick, so moved. Councillor Townend seconding. Any further comment on the consent agenda? I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. And I'll move to item 23.1, City of Sarnia, and go to the Deputy Mayor.
I would like to move to receive and support.
And motion to receive and support. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Townend. Deputy, would you like to speak to it?
Just that in talking with some of our law enforcement, this is a concern. It's a continuing annoyance for them, and it is demoralizing for them to try to enforce and then see them back on the street to reoffend. And it's also very concerning for any individuals that are impacted by any of the criminal activity to see them released as quickly as they are without really any consequence. So I think it's worth our support.
Thank you. Councillor Townend, would you like to comment? Would anyone else like to comment? Seeing no further comment, I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. And then we go to 24.1 CN rail issues. And I believe this is the deputy that pulled this one as well.
Yes, it was. Thank you. If I'm in order, I'd like to ask a question of staff for clarification on this prior to making a motion.
And I'll accept that. Which member of staff would you be looking for?
And
I'm not sure.
I'll ask the question, maybe I'll direct it through the CAO to whichever director may be best suited, or himself, to be able to answer it, if that works. My question is, we do have a significant rail line through the township, and I can see where there would be benefits to supporting this, but I don't want to support something if it really isn't a benefit to this township. So I'm just curious if there would be any drawback to us supporting it.
To the CAO or to whomever you would like to direct this?
Through you, your worship. I don't see any reason not to support it. I don't think that there are municipal drains that would affect the CN rail lines. However, as you know, we have had conversations with CN over some development issues in the past. So it's always been staff's feeling that the CN needs to be quite responsive to the local concerns. So I don't see any harm in supporting this motion unless there are the only other person, I guess, MJ, Director MJ Merritt may have some comment on this as well.
Thank you, Mr. Silver. Director Merritt, do you have further comment?
Through you, Your Worship, I completely agree with our CAO. There's no harm. At this point, we don't have any municipal drain that are affected with CN, but you never know in the future, as we're dealing with different drainage issue, it may come up. So
Thank you. With that, to the Deputy Mayor, or is there any other member of council that would have a question with regard to this? Seeing none, to the Deputy Mayor, I will accept a motion.
I would move to receive and support.
Motion to receive and support. Do I have a seconder? I'll go with Councillor Gordon. Thank you. Any comments?
Just that I would like to thank staff for their input, and I realized we didn't have any municipal drains, but there could be significant drainage issues in the future, which this would definitely benefit, especially with the development that we're having along the rail line, as well as was mentioned. So, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any further comment? I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. I do note that I'm seeing a call in to the clerk. Have you confirmed that if that's Mr. Linkson?
I believe it may be, Your Worship. I've just renamed it so the telephone number is private.
Thank you.
Did you want to do that now or finish this section? I guess that is finishing that section.
I believe we are now finished the consent agenda, so I think with the appropriate timing to move back to, and scrolling back, item 9.1. Okay.
Okay.
And we would invite Mr. Linkson in.
Yep, I'll allow to speak.
Welcome, Mr. Linkson. I believe you can hear us. Can you confirm if you can hear me?
I can hear you, but can you hear me, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, we can, and I'm seeing nods from the rest of council that we can hear you. Since you are a phone in, I will ask if you could give us your full name and then go ahead with your presentation.
All right. My name is Terrance, Terrancew, Linkson, Linkson.
Thank you. You may go ahead, sir.
Okay, is the full council present?
We have 6 members of council present. Councillor Porter is currently on leave.
Okay. I would ask that when you councillors are speaking to me, they identify themselves for obvious reasons. Other than that, I'll start my presentation. I hope everybody had a good Christmas. Anyway, my presentation will be in 3 parts. Please refer to the 2 diagrams and the list of 9 parking violations of the residents at 109 Davy Crescent.
If I could hold you, Mr. Linkson, if I could hold you there, you made reference to a diagram.
Yes, I submitted 2 diagrams and a list of parking violations of 109 to the clerk.
Sorry, through your worship. That information wasn't circulated. It was the information that you had submitted with your request, Mr. Linkson.
Well, it should have been. However,
so given that
within the two diagrams, there are 9 listed parking violations. The violations occur daily, 24/7, 52 weeks a year, and have been ongoing for the past 10 years. Enough is enough, Mr. Mayor. The most serious violation is the parking of a Ford Focus on municipal property, which is the entranceway or boulevard, whichever you prefer, blocking the sidewalk and obstructing the roadway simultaneously. This is a major safety hazard, forcing children, seniors, and residents into the street to get around the blockage at 109 Davy Crescent. The distance from the corner of Kidd and Davy Crescent is less than 130 feet to the blockage at 109 Davy Crescent. Vehicles come around the corner at high speeds and are on top of the residents in the street in less than 2 seconds. Our road crews are prevented from proper snow removal and maintenance of the sidewalk and street because of this blockage and others in the township. The township's liability is wide open to lawsuits for slip and fall injuries, and heaven forbid a resident is struck by a vehicle. This council has failed miserably to enforce the parking bylaw and has absolutely no control of the bylaw enforcement and your contractor. I urge council to terminate said contract and pull the bylaw enforcement, especially the parking bylaw, in-house where it should have been all along. As a past councillor of Ernestown and Loyalist Townships, I'm extremely astonished and deeply dismayed at this council's failure to do due diligence and the lack of concern for the safety of my neighborhood residents and that of other neighborhoods in Loyalist Township. Part 2. After a tremendous number of complaints to the daytime bylaw officer by residents, I visited the Odessa Municipal Office and spoke to both the Deputy Clerk and the Director of Corporate Services / Clerk. At that time, I presented the aforementioned diagrams and lists of violations. The documents are backed up with over 60 time and date stamped photos on my phone, which were viewed by the clerk and deputy clerk. On December 6th, I requested face-to-face meetings with the daytime bylaw officer at 109 Davy Crescent. On that day, the bylaw officer witnessed the violations. The officer took one photo of the violation of one violation and license plate. However, no ticket was issued. The officer, in front of witnesses, proceeded to make false interpretations of the law that contradicted the provincial statutes as written in the parking bylaw 2007-31. The officer then proceeded to give excuses for not enforcing the parking bylaw. On December 10th meeting, the daytime bylaw officer didn't even get out of the truck, with the violations clearly in sight. When I asked the officer to do her job, her response was to drive off and not enforce the parking bylaw. After an hour and a half and no enforcement, I officially lodged 2 dereliction of duty complaints to the Director of Corporate Services / Clerk. Excuse me. I have not received any response of disciplinary actions taken on the bylaw officer. Also, there have been a number of residents' complaints lately of 109 Davy Crescent parking violations, no return phone calls, and within minutes of the complaints, the offending vehicles magically disappear. Coincidence? Part 3. I would like to see the following immediate actions. 1, I want a $500 rebate on my paid taxes for bylaw enforcement services not rendered. 2, I want the enforcement of bylaw 2007-31 to the letter of the law without interpretations or personal discretions. 3, I want 3 patrols per month of Davy Crescent and nightly enforcement from 1 a.m. to 7 a.m. during the winter months, December 1st through March 31st. 4, which is the final item, I want 2 no parking signs installed 2 meters on either side of 107-109 entranceway. End of presentation.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Mr. Linkson. At this time, I will ask members of council if they have any questions for Mr. Linkson. And I'm seeing no questions from council at this time. Okay. Therefore, Mr. Linkson, I'll say thank you again for the presentation, and we appreciate your input. Okay. Council, what would you like to do with this presentation?
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor. With all due respect, There are people out here that have been almost hit in the street trying to get around the blockage. We can't have this. We have to immediately correct it. So please, with all due respect, get the enforcement up to speed. Thank you.
Again, thank you very much, Mr. Linkson. And Council, I will ask for a motion with regard to this presentation. Deputy, go ahead.
I would move to receive the delegation and refer it to staff for a report back to council, and I'll speak to it if seconded.
Thank you. I'm seeing Councillor Budrick, you're seconding. Thank you. And go ahead, Deputy.
I just wanted to comment that with the list of items that would be referred back to in the report, I'm not sure, but it may end up having to come to a closed session just because it would be identifiable staff members or hired staff that would be in the report. So just throwing that out there in case Mr. Linkson is still on the line. And I have received public concerns about this issue. And in each of them, I did remind them that if it was an HR issue or identifiable nature, that we wouldn't be able to respond. We would only be able to do what was required.
Thank you. Seconder, do you have comment?
Yes, I do know the area very well. Walk by there quite frequently. I'm just curious if we could get through the deputy's request, the staff report with some of the details that were spoken about this evening.
Thank you. I believe the clerk has some of that content. Any other comments from members of council? I would add one more piece that the deputy has made reference to the confidentiality or the potential requirement to go into closed session with regard to employees, HR, and personally identifying matters. I would also remind council that any enforcement or dealings with the alleged parking problems would also be dealt with in a confidential manner and not be brought forward in detail either to this council or to any member of the public. Okay. With that, final comments back to the deputy. Then I will call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. And we can move forward. We are a little bit out of order, but I believe we've just finished the consent agenda. Committee minutes. Updates from members appointed to county council, committees, or local boards. Is there anything from council that you wish to bring forward with regard to any of your subcommittees or other agencies that you're attached to? I'll go to Councillor Budrick. Go ahead.
Through the clerk's help, your worship, we have we'll be adding the taxi commission information to our calendar for any meetings that anyone within the municipality is interested in viewing via Zoom, similar to this application.
Thank you very much. Okay. Anyone else have anything they'd like to bring forward from their relative committees? Seeing nothing further, we'll move forward to members' privilege. Anything anyone would wish to bring forward under members' privilege? Councillor Townend, go ahead.
Just my thanks to all those who were involved in organizing a vaccination clinic, which took place on the grounds of St. Paul's Presbyterian Church on Amherst Island, to Jen at at Loyalist Pharmacy in Amherstview, to Ida Gablis, to all the volunteers. It's yet again another typical example of the island coming together for its own, and it's very much appreciated, particularly in this time when we want everybody to get their shots, to get their boosters.
Thank you very much, Councillor Townend. I completely agree with the community spirit of your recognition of the community spirit of Amherst Island. But I also have to note on that there have been a number of vaccination clinics and similar efforts on the mainland for which there have been a large number of volunteers as well. And so we would like to thank those as well. But so all of the volunteers, be they islanders or mainlanders, we greatly appreciate your assistance. Okay. Anyone else under member's privilege? Seeing nothing further, we go to the confirmatory bylaw. Anyone? Deputy, so moved. Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Budrick, thank you. Right. Any comment? I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Any opposed? Motion is carried. Looking at upcoming meeting dates, we are scheduled for January 31st and February the 3rd to have committee of the whole regarding the capital budget. And then February 7th, committee of adjustment and a committee of the whole. And then February the 14th will be the next regular council meeting. Is anything else to add to that? Seeing nothing. Okay. Then I will call for a motion to adjourn. Okay. I'll go with Councillor Townend. Do I have a seconder for the motion to adjourn? Councillor Parks. Thank you. And any comment? I'll call the question. All those in favor, please raise a hand. Motion is carried. We are adjourned. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great evening. And we'll see